High School School Building Committee meeting. I'm Matt Landers, I'm the chair. Briefly, we have a new member today, Patrick Heffernan. If you just want to go around briefly and we can all introduce ourselves for the public and Patrick as well. So I'll start and we'll go this way. I'm Matt, I'm the chair. I'm also on the school committee.
Mike Colburn, Salisbury Selectman.
John Skonecki, Manager of Facilities and Grounds.
Jim Kolb, whoa, that was tough, Vice Chair.
Nerissa Wallen, School Committee, and I'm also going to just remind Matt that you need to announce that it's audio and video recorded at the beginning for legal purposes. So.
This is audio and video recorded.
You can never take that chair out of Nerissa.
Peter Secondiani, industry experience guy.
Alan McCray, Middle School Principal.
Allison Irvin, Middle School Representative, Teacher Representative.
Matt Haley, High School Math Teacher.
I'm Patrick Heffernan, so newly elected to the Newbury Select Board. That's why I'm here. So, thanks.
Peter Aburn, Byfield resident.
Erica Champagne, Salisbury resident, parent.
Rich Poy, Director of Finance and Operations.
And Brian Forget, Superintendent. Oh. Patrick Jansen is here, Student Representative.
Okay, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian to go over the MSBA submission and timelines, which we're doing great on.
Okay, so you have in your packet, you have a detailed agenda, which is annoying, but in order to have some of the content that prints out online, just to clarify, we have shifted to the system that this agenda is posted in. It's called Board Docs. So the school committee is completely paperless. Are people okay with shifting to paperless and having these documents included on and people can bring laptops or phones or whatever to get this rather than printing? Okay, so for the time being, I think certainly when we're getting to plans and larger things where that won't be online, but for the time being, when we're talking about small 3, 4, 1-page documents, we'll keep it to paperless. So you have on in front of you a sheet that looks like this. It's the original timeline, just to give you an update of where we are at. Before we had met, we last met on, was it April 30th, I think? We had submitted the initial compliance. It's a very simple document. Obviously, we had established the school building committee. Since we last met, we had until Monday, May 5th to complete an educational profile questionnaire and an online enrollment projection. Both of those were submitted ahead of that timeline. The educational profile questionnaire is a very, I wouldn't say detailed, but it's a document that asks us to detail and outline what exists today and then what we're looking to achieve. Obviously, we are studying all options, but in essence, we were saying that's an opportunity to share if you're looking at a massive reconfiguration or if you're looking to remove entire sections of buildings and rethinking. Obviously, what we've talked about is we want to study the continued 7 through 12 campus as well as the potential option of bringing 6th grade over, but we're not proposing any major kind of systemic changes, consolidations other than that. So that's largely what that document provided. Second big piece was the online enrollment projection. That was a more detailed document that includes both current enrollments as well as they use the cohort survival method. So we've used Jerome McKibben in the past few years. We have NESDEC enrollment projections that use those same survival cohort methodologies. We submitted quite a bit of information to them about enrollment, current, past, and we also then worked with towns to pull historical live birth data, as well as recent housing projections, or I'm sorry, recent housing permits, and then projected housing permits. So that's been, that was a little more detailed to try and give them information around what is in the works. I mean, there are projects that are literally being built. There are those that are kind of theorized but not yet permitted. There are those that have recently passed that town meeting in Rowley, right? So there's all kinds of different projects. So we had to kind of synthesize and provide that information to them. And we submitted that documentation to them earlier in late April. We then did have our enrollment meeting, it'll be 4 weeks ago this Friday, on Friday the 13th of June. The original, I don't know if we called that out as a separate agenda item, we can just talk about it. We did.
We can move to it
Okay.
if you want.
So so just this last thing, I'll talk about the enrollment in a second, but that was based on all the data that we submitted to them. We then held a meeting with a few different staff at the MSBA who look at this and then turn that into what will be our design enrollment. Talk about that more in a second. The 3 remaining things here, there's a maintenance and capital planning information document. Thank you, John Skanicki, for doing a lot of digging. I would say that what this document wants to know is what's your practice of planning for and budgeting and maintaining your facilities. Is that a fair assumption, John, all the stuff you've pulled together? Everything from spending on various costs, maintenance, capital improvements, basic routine maintenance, historical data as well as projected, questions about overrides, have we deferred maintenance and projects, as well as a lot about maintenance practice. So this document probably will be submitted by the end of this week, early next week. And from this document, we have the ability to gain additional reimbursement points. So we know that for, I think I'm too close to this. We know that for the feasibility and schematic design phase, we'll have a 47.5% roughly reimbursement rate. When we get into the schematic design and preferred design and into the main project, we will be able to get additional points based on this document, which reflects our practices. So good, solid practices. I want to say we got a couple extra points for the Pine Grove project based on our practice of both planning for and budgeting and executing both preventative and long-term maintenance planning. So certainly we want to do our due diligence to put as much detail in as possible. John's done a lot of work in the 2 years, now over 2 years. Happy anniversary. 2 years and 3 days since John joined us on July 1st of 2023. So the level of documentation, even online tracking of maintenance is pretty extensive. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to gain a few points as we move forward. Again, that's the next phase. That's not at this point. The last 2 things, the local vote authorization and the feasibility study agreement. The vote authorization we'll take a look at. That is an action by the school committee. We're going to ask this group if you agree with that number to make a recommendation to the school committee. And then the feasibility study agreement, I actually sign off on once all is said and done. And what that basically codifies is everything we've talked about to date. What our reimbursement rate will be for that feasibility phase, what the design enrollment will be, and so forth. So we are on track. The one item I did want to mention specifically here is that, as you'll remember, the MSBA puts out the expectation that you're moving into Module 2 generally a year after you're welcomed in. So when we were there being welcomed in December of '24, Manchester Essex, for Essex Elementary, was being welcomed into Module 2 at the same meeting. We had said early on, we're not asking the voters for the feasibility funding. We have that set aside. We want to do this as quickly as possible. We said maybe August, they said no. So they have now confirmed that they are targeting us for the October meeting, so October 29th. There are very set board meetings. There's one in late August, there's one on October 29th. MSBA folks have all confirmed that that is now their target. That has been our target. It was very nice to hear them say that they agree and they would like to speed this up for us as well. So as far as timeline, what that means is, I think we had talked scenarios. last time. If we are welcomed in to Module 2 is selecting our design team. So we first select an OPM, an Owner's Project Manager, call that 8 weeks. If we're being welcomed in end of August, call that November and December with the holidays. Once we have an OPM, the OPM walks us through designer selection. That sometimes can be a little longer, call that 8 to 12 weeks. So by late February into March, we have our design team in place, and we're moving into Module 3, which is starting all of that feasibility study work. So I think that's all that's fit to print. The big piece there is we're on track, and the MSBA agrees we can go a little faster. So any questions on that? We have summer energy in the room.
I don't really have a question, but I was just going to ask, as you go back to enrollment in a second, if you can just take a second to explain survival cohort methodology, because it sounds very sinister and it is not. And I think that's a term that you wouldn't just know what it is by the name.
Yes. I don't know that I could give you a 101 on how to do the survival cohort method, but it is an industry for demographers. It is an industry-accepted methodology where it makes assumptions. And so where you have births known, it makes projections for, and where you have folks who are currently alive, I hate the term morbidity tables, right? Like there's this entire process where they assume when people will no longer be with us and living in towns, and when they will be replaced by others. Part of that discussion is we have a high, call it aging in place population. So very typical in all 3 of our towns is that folks are living, and this is not just unique to Triton, folks are living in their homes a lot longer than they were decades ago. Right? It was when you were in the kind of family child rearing ages, you had the 3-4 bedroom home, and then you downsized and moved on to something else. The next family moved in, had kids, they were in the schools. We've talked about the fact that over the last 20, 30 years, all of the North Shore school-age population has decreased. It's not that they're choosing elsewhere, going to other private schools, there's just less kids. So that's all factored in, and we'll talk about with the enrollment, they allowed us to include some of those assumptions, which helped drive up the numbers a bit as far as our design enrollment. So.
Okay, so moving on to the confirming the design enrollment. We had a meeting on Friday the 13th with the MSBA, which went very well, in my opinion. Learned a lot of new things, and they had a lot of data, and Brian can walk you through all of that.
So I wish I had more for you. There are some PowerPoints and slide decks we didn't make copies of. If you're interested, I can certainly share that information. In essence, what they did is kind of regurgitated the information that we had submitted. I was hoping that by today we would have our actual confirmation letter. The design enrollment is key from this point forward. Everything we do will be contingent on an enrollment number that they will approve eligible reimbursement, right? So everything here forward when we're designing, there will be reimbursable costs and non-reimbursable costs. Obviously, everything that is reimbursable becomes reimbursable at that whatever final number is, maybe 50, 51%. We want to do everything we can to make anything and everything reimbursable, so we're splitting that cost. There will always be non-reimbursable costs. General district administration is non-reimbursable. So do we kind of make a simple space, take that out, or is it included in? Long time ago, it was included in this project in the building because it was the most cost-effective solution, because that wouldn't be reimbursable. So the reimbursable, non-reimbursable, you will be well-versed in reimbursable and non-reimbursable in the years ahead. But at this point, the key is our design enrollment is what will drive everything. Square footage, number of classrooms, number of gathering spaces, size of gathering spaces. And so that's a really key number. Our original, all the documentation, so we were supposed to have that officially, 2-3 page letter certifying what our enrollment is. We don't have it certified yet. However, the original paperwork that was produced, and I shared with the group before we met, they put us at 735 as a baseline enrollment, which all of us took a breath. We're currently about 845. So through that conversation with the MSBA, to reiterate what Matt said, I think it went very well. We didn't have to do a lot of pitching because there's quite a few things that they've come to understand factor in to the actual enrollment. So whether it be when you redesign, I mean, I know, right? Anecdotally, I know I've had conversations with families who have chosen to choice their kids elsewhere because they say, that building, I can't. And so there will be families who will no longer choice and will keep their kids here, and that will help increase enrollment. The number of building permits, the housing starts, all of that data allowed them to make an assumption. So all of those assumptions, where we landed was a design enrollment of 895. Again, I cannot say that is certified because I don't have it in writing, but all of us heard it. And so that is where they have us currently projected. Again, I felt pretty good about that. I had asked for 1,000. I kind of knew we wouldn't get 1,000, but I felt pretty good that we were, at or around 900, knowing that our birth rates and all of that still continue to stay flat or even trend down in some years ahead. So to be able to, we know we will trend down on this campus as those smaller cohorts are now coming through COVID and all that. As they come through the middle and high school, we will dip down on the enrollment on this campus. So to have them have the ability to roughly put it at 900, we felt pretty good about that. So you can add something?
I was just going to ask if you could talk about the multiple designs that we're being required to look at with just the different grades and how that affects design enrollment.
Yes, that was my next, that's okay. Make sure I don't forget anything. So in the design enrollment, right, so we will have a design enrollment certified. That 895 is 7 through 12 as the campus exists today. I don't remember the exact number off the top of my head. It was a little over 1,000, right? 1,035?
1,070.
1,070.
6 through 12.
We also, as part of this, you'll remember, we said we would study bringing 6th grade up here. So they also certify a design enrollment should 6th grade be moved up here. So we now will have a design enrollment that matches both of those. They had actually at one point talked about a 9 through 12 design enrollment and then kind of backtracked and realized that meant we would be studying an option that doesn't include the middle school. And nowhere in this conversation have we ever said we would talk about this campus without factoring in the middle school. So they've kept it 7 through 12, 6 through 12. Both of those will appear on the enrollment, on the certification. Both of those will be in the feasibility study agreement. We have to study both of those. Certainly, hopefully, we'll talk about the kind of visioning work we're doing. Hopefully, a lot of this will start to get teased out, so we don't have to spend a lot of time studying 6 through 12. Once it's with designers and OPMs involved, so that we're designing actual physical spaces, which gets a whole lot more expensive. So we do have to study it fully, and that is part of the process. But, so as of this point, and I don't expect that to change when we get that certification, I was saying to Matt, it'll probably appear tomorrow in my inbox, the day after our meeting. But that would be both a separate certification, and that would drive that feasibility study agreement, which would be signed prior to that meeting in August. It's a lot of Brian talking tonight. Questions?
When you're in the discussion on enrollment, because of their, basically the whole State House is really pushing for development. Is that factored into these discussions? Because they're changing zoning in all 3 of our communities.
Yeah.
And we're going to see an uptick in some children. It's not going to be, because a lot of it, cluster zoning really does not bring in children, it brings 55 and above communities. We know that from Salisbury. But they are pushing development for children. So in all 3 of our towns, we're getting pushed hard by the state right now.
I would say they were very generous on that.
Okay.
And they took it into account. Most, like Pentucket's enrollment actually went down
Yeah.
when they did their design enrollment, which is threw me way off, but it actually worked out being what it is currently. But yeah, they were very generous with that.
Okay, because I just know what's going to happen. I know what Salisbury's planning, and obviously I know what Newbury and Raleigh are planning, and what's coming down the pipeline. I mean, Raleigh has a massive 40B project that's going to get approved.
That was in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we're not, short-sighted here.
No, they've only made a mistake once with enrollment, and that was what the reasoning, because there was a development that they didn't take into account.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say, right, so in those of us who were involved in the Rowley project, the Pine Grove project, it's not a perfect science, right? As a rule, the MSBA assumes low. So we can say we want to do more, it becomes non-reimbursable. So if the number is 40 classrooms on this campus, and we say 45 is the right thing, fine, 5 become non-reimbursable. So we still have the ability to make those decisions, right? This group gets authorized to make those decisions on behalf of the district. But the state is very conservative in their estimates. So again, we were thrilled that they basically added 160 from the 735 baseline. That's what the methodology was spitting out. So that's good based on that data. But it won't be, but it could be, it might not, it won't be perfect. Second piece of that is that MSBA folks made a good point that it was actually John Jum from the MSBA, that classroom space at a middle school and high school is very different than at an elementary, right? When you have a self-contained classroom, 20 feels very different than when you're able to, I mean, we've got classes now running at 10, we've got classes running at 24, 25. So in a high school setting, the classes are bigger. They're also, the schedule changes things that allows you to manage the numbers more kind of effortlessly than just a straight classroom.
The other question is the towns, like planning departments and stuff, are they consulted too on this matter?
Did you say the towns?
Yeah, the planning
That
department.
data came right from them.
Okay.
Yeah, so we went right to
that
the...
information, because they're the ones who are in charge of that information.
That is not information that I wanted to be in charge of,
Because
no.
building inspectors and
Yep.
planning departments see way more than us when it comes to zoning and what's...
Yeah, so we worked right through the town clerks, and they, with building inspector or the
Yep.
clerks with births and stuff like that.
Yep.
So yes, this is definitely not our data,
Okay, so, perfect, thank you.
for sure.
And they also designed to 85% occupancy as well, so there is a little bit of a buffer.
Okay.
Not that we want to use that, but
I just don't want to be the one who approves a building that has to be an addition put on it 5 years later, that's all I'm saying.
Could that happen? Absolutely. But at least we've done it and maximized everything we can, So over the next 2 years, as we're designing that preferred schematic design, if things start to change, they would be flexible. Certainly, if some data changed that would, that input, they would make adjustments. They don't regularly do that. But we could also make decisions as well, and that becomes a local decision, locally funded.
Because, the state's going to be changing a lot of zoning laws, and it's coming down the pike, and a lot of our towns are 2 acres plus, and they might not be able to keep that, so we'll see.
Yep.
Thanks.
For sure.
all right, next is the visioning work update. Narissa, do you want to take that, or, sorry, threw you right under the bus. So me and Narissa are the representatives from the school building committee on the visioning working group.
Say, I got nothing on that for paperwork, so I'm going to have to go off my brain for this. There's some in here, actually.
Sorry.
Yeah, so the visioning,
Yeah, right?
I'm good under pressure usually. I don't know about today, my brain's a little gone. But so the visioning working group came out of this group's discussion last meeting about working with MLP Design for doing some advanced visioning work. And the advantage of that should be that rather than sort of bringing in our designers and our OPMs and letting the people who sort of design school buildings and have, I don't want to say cookie cuttered this process, but right, they're doing the same things over and over and over again, and they're profit driven, right? Rather than having them sort of drive the bus on where the priorities should be, is to bring in a group that has no investment in the long-term project and have them work with educators. Long-term, it's going to be students, it's going to be parents, it's going to be community members, town leadership, it's going to be across the board who's involved eventually. But initially, it's primarily educators and leadership, and then Matt and I were included in part of that group to talk through about sort of what the needs are in this district, where the perceived gaps are, I guess the challenges, what the end goals should be. The decision was made to base this group largely on the Portrait of a Learner group because they've actually done a lot of this work already. They've sort of gone into depth on what a student's education should be, K through 12, throughout the Triton Regional School District, and then what the middle school and high school components of that should be. So as part of that group, we had a couple discussions. They're listed in the agenda. But I think it was also important just to go out and see and talk to other districts that have done recent most of them, I think all of them, were new builds. One was a partial renovation with a major new addition on it as well. But just to look at the educational design elements. So we were going out and looking at sort of how they bring natural light into every single classroom and sort of what that's doing for students. We were going out and looking at, how these spaces can be built for collaboration. How does it work when you have a giant atrium in the middle, and what's the student experience actually look like in a building like that? So we visited, I want to say it was 6, 7? 5, okay. Felt like way more than that. It was a lot of driving. They were not local, no. And they ranged in size. We looked at some that were just middle schools. We looked at some were combo middle school, high school. There was a lot of learning, I think, on our part about this visioning process. And it was kind of interesting to see the leadership in those buildings, even talking to the visioning company afterwards, and just having discussions because there were a lot of places, I think, that we visited where they said, we have this amazing space and it was designed for this and we don't know how to use it, or we're not using it effectively. And in some cases it wasn't designed effectively, and they were very honest about that as well, I think, where even simple things like taking the teacher's lounge and essentially putting it in the main office. And they said not a teacher has been in there because one of the teachers told us that, I think it was, what was it? I don't.
9 minutes or something?
Yeah, to get from her end of the wing, because it was this very long, narrow building, all the way down to that teacher's lounge to have a lunch and then go back. And it was a waste of time for her that she was desperate, since it's only, this very set period. To be able to use that time effectively. We looked at planning spaces for teachers where they have these common planning areas where they're, I don't want to say forced together, but they're encouraged to gather and have these discussions. We looked at teaming, we looked at tower structures, we looked at house structures within these organizations. And I think it was just sort of eye-opening for that group that went out to just see sort of how that exists in a structure elsewhere. And it was interesting to me, at least, how it dovetailed into some of the discussions about what everyone here wanted was this, deeper collaboration, education to be really meaningful with more projects and hands-on, and these really applied, I guess, learning, and that's hard to do in a lot of the classrooms here because they're built with a traditional sort of 1960s, 70s, 80s classroom structure. And then when you have the ability to, have a glass wall that opens up between classrooms, when you have the ability to have full sight lines on students who are spilling out into small group working areas and giving them some autonomy to be able to do that, sort of how that breaks down these barriers and allows that to happen. So I think it was more of a thought exercise than anything. I know some of the other folks were here were on those. I don't know if they have anything they want to chime in, but that's been sort of the process. And then we're meeting tomorrow morning to talk through that again. We've been recording our thoughts and surveys all along, but just to talk through sort of the takeaways, I think, about what everyone came away with. We talk about it on the minibus when Brian's driving us home, but that's not the same thing as
Good driving.
It's good driving. It's excellent driving.
Not what I
Very
heard,
good
but-
driver.
So just to tell you what's happening from this point forward, because we actually met with Mike Perlow and Paul White today. to talk about our meeting tomorrow, but also to talk about next steps with this visioning work. So key in this, as Narissa said, is this isn't going out and looking at the Taj Mahal so we can design the Taj Mahal. This is looking at spaces. We were looking at buildings. There was a high school that's 441,000 square feet, right? We will never have a building that big, but there are components within that the designers, that Mike and Paul wanted us to see so we could talk about the education, knowing that we would never have a building half the size, let alone that size. So it was really, again, it was a thought exercise to talk about what we want in a learning space, not the design, in the learning space. So from here, actually, we have our meeting tomorrow. We're going to have kind of two groups. We're going to actually, there's the group that went on the tours is, I think, 16 of us, right? Ish, 17. And then there's going to be a smaller group. We're going to refine down a little bit more to do some planning for some larger groups from here. So I'll be putting out a message, trying to figure out exactly when. I feel like we need to wait a little bit to engage everyone. But as we get to September and October, we carved out 2 full days that we're going to invite a larger group of educators, I would say predominantly educators, but also going to invite students as well as a group of parents and community members. I'm going to put out an APB and say anyone who's interested in participating, let me know. We're hoping to keep that group to 40 to 45 people because obviously if you have a group of 150 people, you're not going to get anything accomplished, but a very well-represented group, people who can speak to the education, again, because this is still about the education, but who want to focus and speak to the educational product, not yet talking about what the design should be. But obviously we want to involve families and students in that discussion as well. So I'll be putting out that APB. There'll be 2 full-day sessions. I think those both landed in October. Is that right, Al? You're looking at them now? Do you have them written down? So 2 in October, and then there'll be another kind of small working group in there. The design team that ended up going on the tours will kind of continue to be a kind of a sounding board, and then we'll also have a shadow day where that group that did the tours, we're going to go and shadow students in this building to live the experience, so that it would be. I think 16 of us would end up doing that, spend half the day in the middle school and then other half is in the high school and then swap. So we can live through, and after all the stuff we've talked about, that would be, I think that was like mid-October between some of these sessions, so that we can kind of be thinking through what we saw, what we've talked about, what does that look like in the life of a student on a day-to-day basis. So the group will get larger, so more people will be invited in to have part of that discussion. But again, we're not yet, don't mistake this for these visioning or these groups when we start to talk down the road about designs and showing possibilities and design options. Still not there. This is going to be very nuts and bolts about education, about instruction, the structure of the day, how we want students learning, how we want educators collaborating, and what kind of spaces make that happen or allow that to happen. So still exciting work, and again, we'll keep reiterating. As we went around, I think 3 of the schools we visited, as we mentioned what we're doing and where we are in the process, they've said, my gosh, I wish we started early, because so many, actually, I was just talking to Mike Perillo today, they responded to as designer selection, they had 2 months to put together their program. So we're starting a shell of an educational program is the document that will not be due probably until June of next year at the earliest. A lot of times districts are taking kind of 3 to 6 months, but sometimes it's crammed into 1 to 2 to 3, and you don't get to do any of this, which is why you end up with those conversations as you're going around, where it depends on who's giving the tour, whether it be the chair of the building committee, where there was nothing wrong with the building, to then people kind of following, the teachers following behind. You just kind of like slow down a little bit, and then you end up in the back of the pack, and you get the truth. And that was the people saying, it's beautiful, but we don't ever used. There's like 15,000 square feet that we've never used, or all this furniture and it's in storage. So this commitment of 30,000 that the school committee took out of stabilization for this purpose is going to be not reimbursable, 100% district dime, but incredibly well spent because it's going to inform the next phase. So we don't end up with designing something and paying for things that we don't want. We'll design efficiently and economically what we need. So.
Okay, and I would say that at our enrollment meeting, the MSBA was also very positive about doing that.
Absolutely.
So moving on to the feasibility.
Matt, before you
Oh,
go on.
sorry, I always forget.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question before you go on? Do you have one, Mike?
Go ahead.
Okay. And this may be, I'm sorry, late in the process, but I was just wondering, it strikes me that recent alumni are a great resource for things like this because they've been in this building and now they're sort of making their way either among other recent high school alumni who have had either similar or different experiences or going out into the workplace. And they have this kind of unique perspective because they're just making this transition. Is there going to be an opportunity for them to provide some feedback as well? Because it strikes me that the graduates that are, probably 2021 to 2025, they have a different look at this than a parent does, than a current student does, than, somebody who's been out 10 years or 20 years. I just wonder, because putting in October, I fully understand the timing. I just feel like it excludes a really important group that I personally feel like we should maybe be gathering some feedback from.
So I think it depends on so at this phase, right, I think it's, is their input valuable? Absolutely. I think as far as where it landed, we went around and around and talked about the summer. It's just trying to get people together in the summer. It's just not possible. So we landed with full days. I know it's a commitment. I think those are 3 weeks apart, those 2 full-day sessions. Felt like it would be one of those things where whether you're a parent or an educator or a student, like you can plan in advance. We have the dates. If I'm messaging in August, I can say it's 2 months from now, but these are the 2 dates we'd be asking you to commit to. We also talked about creating we want this many of this group and this many of this group and this, and then you quickly get to a group of 75. So we said, okay, let's put out the APB to everyone and say, we want a mixture of educators, families, alumni, love it, forward that on, and then again, trying to hone in on like a group of, we were thinking like 45, maybe 50. We're going to do it off-site because can't gather people in here during the day easily necessarily. So trying to figure out all those logistics, but I don't disagree at all. We hadn't carved out that as a specific group we wanted to include, but I think that makes a lot of sense to make sure there are a few. Yeah. And I guess I would say, I want to make sure, as I was hearing you say that the alumni that have kind of lived through this building, this is kind of future focused, not, the discussion is never what do we want to change here? This is what do we envision, which as you mentioned, it has kind of lined up with our portrait of a learner. It's so hard in that group to not get stuck in, well, I don't think that could happen. Like, no, like it could, right? We did this yesterday in this room, and it's so hard to kind of so easy to get trapped in that. I don't think that could work right now. And like, great, you're right, it couldn't, but that doesn't mean we don't strive for that. So that would be my only hesitation is saying, kind of based on your experience, and we don't want based on their experience, we want to kind of have this vision. So I think it's a broader group, but I think alumni makes sense for sure.
Brian, we did schedule a student-only visioning thing with just present students, including 8th graders. So we at least capture that. Kids have lived the experience of being in this building, or still are, so.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Mike?
I'm going to support Narissa on the alumni thing. There's a lot of us that went to this school. I could probably put it on the alumni page, and you're probably going to get a couple hundred people to say, oh yeah, I want to be a part of that vision. And the other question is, when you talk of vision, you selected groups. You're putting other people at a disadvantage because we don't know what you're talking about. So I think communication, if you're going to have smaller groups for vision talks, you got to do a better job of communicating to me, or I won't support the vision, because I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, there isn't a vision yet, so
Yeah, but
there hasn't been anything
It
shared.
sounds like you guys are having small groups, going to come up with a vision, and then we all have to support it. I won't do that, Brian.
Without effective communication, you're saying?
Yeah, I don't know what you talk to the teachers. I don't know what the teachers want.
Right, because that hasn't happened yet. What we're saying is what we've done is a lot of listening so far.
Yeah, but you guys went to go see schools and everything else that none of us know about. We don't know anything that was talked about at those meetings.
Neither did they. That's all, like tomorrow is the first time we're getting together as post visit to synthesize our thoughts and to start to put something. There is nothing yet.
Okay, I'm just saying, I don't want to be at a disadvantage. It sounds like I'm starting to be at a disadvantage. And
Yeah, I don't think you are, because there isn't anything decided.
Okay, I'm just, if there's going to be meetings and stuff like that, even if we can't make it, we should have an opportunity to make it, because I can't get behind something if I'm not involved in everything.
So I think, this is just my perspective, Mike, coming from, kind of, I guess, similar situation, is that what Mike communicated to us is that you need to have a small group to sort of have these experiences, because you can't traipse 1,000 people through some of these buildings. So what he tries to do is he tries to sort of expose some folks to these buildings and spaces, and everybody's sort of coming from a different viewpoint, but then he tries to use that group as sort of facilitators for the larger discussion. So they've had that capability to see what's out there, and then they can come back and facilitate these discussions. So he had said, like, it could be 8 people around the table with one of those people that went out, and it's this sort of guided thought process to start soliciting things while that person who went out and had these experiences is starting to relay them around that group as well. And then the hope is that you continue to sort of just spread it out in waves from there, because it's really hard for Brian to say, I think this is the vision, or I think this is solution, and not sound very authoritarian or single-minded or whatever word we want to use there, right? So it's got to be this process where it's just sort of like pebbles in a pond, right? It just builds these
I understand that, but there's 18 people on this committee, and 18 people should have all the same exact information at the same exact time. If not, it's not going to be successful. Because I can't get behind if only 2 or 3 people are getting all the information. I can't get behind that vision. I'm sorry. That's not what this body was put in place for. This body was put in place for all of us to have a say and all of us to understand what's going on with this building.
This body is designed to make recommendations.
Yeah, I can't make a recommendation if I'm not a part of the discussion.
Could I jump in, having gone through this recently in another district?
Yeah.
So, early on, wow, that's very loud. It's not uncommon, and I've been through this twice in 2 different states at this point. It's not uncommon for district leadership, and I'm actually surprised that it was as large as 16, at the beginning of this period to go and see other schools that the MSBA has worked on. And then the visioning process usually does start with a core group, usually mostly educators, because they're the ones who live it, right? But as the process continues and we select an OPM and then we go into designer selection, that's when the visioning is going to really kick up. And that's when the community starts to become a lot more involved, and you're going to have all sorts of posters in here, and everybody's going to have Post-it notes that they're going to put up, and this is how we want this this area to look like, because we want kids to have the ability to have project-based learning, and we want them to be able to collaborate. And as Narissa said, we want to have all of these things for these teachers to be able to collaborate. And from what I've seen, whether they be members of the school building committee or members of the PTA or just, the folks that live down the road, everybody has the ability to come in and give that feedback on what the vision for the educational plan is, but then later on also what the vision for what the facility looks like. And then it ultimately comes back to this body to take action on it. Does that make sense?
I fully understand all that, but right now I'm at a disadvantage with information.
I guess I would say I don't think you are. I think you're perceiving it that, but so we take the tours, right? We saw the schools. We haven't even processed to say what we learned was That's happening tomorrow. And so, yes, that outcome will be reported back to this group, right? So that as that visioning continues to happen, the reporting out will be the information you need. I mean, I don't think this group of 18 can do all of the nuts and bolts day to day. There are some things that are very educator-driven.
Yep.
And so I guess I would just say to you, I promise you, you're not at a disadvantage. There's nothing we know or have decided that you're not aware of yet. I mean, it's just information gathering, and then just start right, if the building committee decides they want to kind of be a fly on the wall for those larger, that kind of group that gets together in October, that 40 to 45, whether it be to contribute or to just kind of see that, that's going to be larger community starting to kind of tease out some of the initial things that the smaller group said, okay, here's what we're thinking. Okay, let's go further with a larger group. Yeah, nothing's decided yet.
Okay, I'm just, you know me, Brian, I like the information. I really like information.
I promise you.
I have to go out.
Yeah.
I have 10,000 people in town of Salisbury.
Yeah.
That's what the Board of Selectmen sit on this for, is we have to go out and get those votes.
100%.
And am I at a disadvantage with information? I want to know what the teachers are saying. I know I'm the boring person that wants to know everything that's going on with this committee, but it's also my name I'm putting on it. And 10,000 people put me in a chair to make sure I have their best interests at heart. And that's why I'm sitting on this body right now. And there's 3 of us that are on here, and you have 2 other elected officials on here. We have to answer to those people more than anyone else on this board. I want to know what's going on, everything that goes on with this. You know, Brian, I sit in meetings and never say a word sometimes. Very rarely, but I do.
I was going to say, I don't remember that meeting, but I bet it happened.
But sometimes it does. But it's because I got the information, and
So I guess I would say to you, right, it benefits no one for us to withhold information. So if there is information
I don't want
to
to
share.
this is our vision, and I want to say, wait a minute here. I wasn't a part of that vision.
Yep.
So you know what I'm going to say? Absolutely not, will not vote for it.
Yeah, you will be part of that decision-making.
No, so at the first meeting when we discussed this, you said, make sure that nobody goes rogue, and
Yes.
no one's going to go rogue. We're getting information, we're going to present it to you.
Because I'm all for natural light. I'm all for mental health.
Yeah.
And that's what natural light helps in a lot of ways. Plants, indoor plants, all this stuff. That's what I want to see out of the school. I want to see that we have 3 of the oldest farming communities in the whole country. Let's bring some of that into it. There's all kinds of things that we can put into the school to make it better than any school around us.
We're also not working on design, we're working on, but they go hand in hand. I get what you're saying, yes.
Sorry, can I just ask a little follow-up question on some of the visioning, pre-planning, especially in the education space, and to piggyback off of Narissa's question, is the sort of full-day sessions that you've designed, is that the only avenue, right? I think this also piggybacks on Mike's, way to get stakeholder input. So you have your stakeholders listed that you're going to talk to students and current students and maybe graduates, et cetera. Is that the only avenue? No. So there can be other ways of doing it besides committing to that sort of one and done couple of days. That's great.
Yeah, so wow, sorry. So those groups would be detailed working groups, again, to create a product that we would then get feedback on, right? So if you're not one person that wants to be in the room making the sausage, you're going to get a chance to provide feedback on that, on what the group produced, and back and
so
forth.
Mike is going to be in the sausage making. That he's going to be in that meeting. I got it. So, but one question I had though was around Narissa's point, which is something that I was thinking as well. So, if we're talking about building in an educational program that is building kids, building their capacity to be ready for the next level, whether that be college or career, I do think that there's a very important group of people newly, and it's less about being recently in this building, but more about, hey, you've moved on to a different level of educational experience. What about that environment or that facility, or if you go into a plumbing trade, right? And what about, what did you need to catch up on, or what did you need to remediate on? those are the places where we could say, what do the learning spaces look like if you, I don't know, you're a recent graduate, you go to Northeastern and you see this like fancy new building, it's all this like maker space and like, they could tell you that's like the thing, like everybody should be in an environment that looks just like that, because that would have helped me learn so much more. I would have been ready for that next step. It took me a while to get used to learning in that type of environment. So that's the type of, I think, feedback that could be really helpful, especially from that like recent graduate group. Again, it's about helping to make sure that this campus is building those students in a way that will actually let them flourish and thrive and be well prepared for the next level, whether that's college or career.
Yep. Agreed.
Any more questions? Okay, we can move on to the feasibility funding vote. Brian?
So you have two documents. One is printed very small. It was small on ledger size, and it's even smaller printed on 8.5 by 11. I would say that our MSBA does not provide a lot of guidance on what that, would you agree, right? There's just kind of, communities come up with what they feel like they can spend on a feasibility study. So we did some work. The documents here show recent history from the MSBA on projects, middle high schools, and what the budget was for, again, this is the feasibility and schematic phase, not the design portion. And so, between that, talking with MSBA folks, talking with other superintendents or folks at other districts that have done projects recently, certainly there's a kind of a cadre of projects. Pentucket's on this, literally bid it. Pentucket, Attleboro bid during kind of COVID dips and benefited from that. We're now on the other side of that benefit, unfortunately. And so we want to make sure we establish a budget that provides us enough money to be able to study effectively everything we want, right? So at this point, we're talking about education vision, right? We're pre-study. We're talking about kind of the nuts and bolts, what education looks like. We have to get into the phasing and with the designers and what the structure actually looks like, especially if we're talking about kind of an NO or add reno, keeping some sections of this building, knocking down and rebuilding others. When that starts to, when you have to study all of that, it can be really costly. And there is no science here, but the number that we arrived at was 1.7 million. We have roughly 1.8 million and change in stabilization. Effective with the new money that went in, we have about 1.85 million. But this number is what we feel like, 1.7 million is the number that we feel like is a healthy budget. If we talk to designers, there are definitely some designers that say, I'd round it up to 2 million. There are some who say, you could do effective with less than that. We put, just to clarify, we put this budget out and people have an option to bid, in essence, bid on that. So we say, here's the maximum budget. People decide whether or not they're willing and think that they can complete the study and propose a budget within that, proposal within that budget. So it's a not to exceed number. We could do better than that, but I don't know if Matt or anyone else had any.
I just weigh in a little bit here. So if you go at the OPM selection, it's essentially a qualifications-based selection process. We have the ability as a district to negotiate. So we have a budget in mind, but in aggregate between the design team and the OPM, we know where we want to be. So we do have some leverage as it relates to negotiating a fee that fits our budget. At least that's what I've seen on the projects I've been engaged in. So I think it's a comfortable number. If you look at, in aggregate, the feasibility and schematic for the design team and the OPM, there's a pretty wide range, but I think the 1.7 or 1.75 is even in the middle or slightly above the middle of all the numbers, even beyond what was passed out. So I'm pretty comfortable with that number. And again, we do have the ability to negotiate, especially with the OPM. And right now, I would say the market, people are hungry. And, even the public sector is actually a little bit busier than the private sector, but there are a lot of OPMs. This is a great project to be on. I think we'll get a lot of interest, and I think there are a lot of good choices, and I think we hold more cards than we might in another point in time.
Great. Glad to hear you say that. Thought you were going to say something else.
I would agree with tariffs and the interest rates right now, private sector is slowing down really quick, so the people are going to be looking for work. So we might be okay.
Until the steel goes up 90%.
Actually, a lot of these firms do more than just public sector, especially on the design side. So to your point, Mike, if the private sector is going like this, they need work.
Any other questions? Nursa?
Sorry, these are both setup questions, but I just feel like it's important to say these things over and over again. Brian, I think that, the most recent project that we have in the district is Rowley, which was significantly lower than this and for reasons other than time. So if you could cover those. And Matt, I just ask you to talk about stabilization account and bringing this out and how it doesn't have to go to another vote, because I think that's important for people to know as well.
I'm sorry, what was that last part?
Stabilization, about this funding already being in stabilization, so this is.
Yeah, we don't have to go to, we don't have to get a vote from the community.
Yes.
Yeah, so the school committee can move it out of stabilization and fund it without, some people have to go to the community for a vote. That complicates things. I think you spoke about that already, right?
I think so, yeah. So that certainly simplifies it, and it was part of the reason why we're able to speed this up and get on the October agenda. And I will also say, right, this becomes reimbursable. So if we spend 1.7 million, we're getting 47.5% of that back, the mechanics of which it's capital outlay, and then we get reimbursed within 30 days from the state. So we deal with the logistics on our end. So we don't actually end up spending the 1.7 million, which is obviously favorable. And what did you ask me to talk about?
Pine Grove.
Oh, that it's higher?
Just because it was, this is significantly higher than Pine Grove.
Yeah, so if you look at some of these numbers on those sheets, again, printed, I can send it to you in the 8.5 by, or whatever it is, 11 by 14.
Bigger
or
than that, 'cause I can't
11
see
by,
it.
well, they'll send you the PDF as 11 by, if you go to Board Docs, it's attached as an 11 by 17, much more readable. So if you look at some of those historical projects back 10 years, 15 years ago, I mean, obviously the rates were significantly less. They were creeping up. COVID, those that got bid out during COVID, like literally Pentucket in the heat of everything shutting down, literally could not have timed the markets and everything more perfectly for a building that they built for $146 million. Even Attleboro, 300 and some odd thousand square feet, they were $296 million. It sounds like it's not a lot of money. It's still a lot of money. But those buildings today, and again, thankfully, as Jim mentioned, hopefully we're trending in the other direction. Those numbers have gone up. So yes, more than double, right, what the town had allocated for feasibility for Pine Grove. We were also, for Pine Grove, ended up being the only one ever in the state. It was called a limited scope repair. They tried it out with Pine Grove and Blue Hills. Blue Hills ended up moving away from that and shifted to a full core program because they wanted to expand. So in essence, what they said is, we said, look, we don't, in the town of Raleigh, we have no other location. It has to be within the town. We just want this building. We want to gut it and redo it. So the town started with I think it was hoping for a $10 million project. It became a $39, $40 million project. But what they basically said in that limited scope repair was, fine, we'll allow you to not study a lot of other options, new location, knock down, rebuild. You cannot leave the confines, the footprint of that building. So they tested it for 1 year. I thought it worked really well. Not quite sure why they didn't continue that program, but it worked perfectly. So that you'll notice on Pine Grove School, there's no change in the overall footprint. Literally every pipe, everything from concrete and steel on in, even into the floor, is brand new, street on in, but the footprint is exactly the same. Even the entry vestibule used to just be a porch, and now it's an entry vestibule. So So that is why, 2.5 times we'll be spending on this project, because we have more to study. We do have to check the box, other location, knockdown, rebuild. I think, in talking with Diane from the MSBA, I think they understand the reality that we're a regional school. We have a regional agreement that says that the campus is in Byfield. We know trying to change the regional agreement is about a 10-year process, so we don't want to go down that avenue. So I think they'll let us check some of those boxes pretty quickly, and it's really going to be about what we do on this campus that we'll have to spend the most time studying. So.
Any more questions? Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend a budget of $1.7 million for feasibility and schematic design to the Triton School Committee for approval and appropriation.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Okay.
Perfect, all right. Now moving on to our communications plan.
I lost the agenda. So there isn't anything, I would say, actionable at this point. I know we've spent some time talking about, there are many options, and we can spend a lot of money on communications. I think ultimately, in my mind, what we've talked about kind of internally is by the time we're rolling with an OPM, a designer, we want to be starting to execute our communication plan. Certainly, there were learnings in a neighboring district that things happened and became to light very late in the game, and we want, to Mike's point, right? I mean, we want this to be open and clear from the, I think we've done a good job at this point. People are clear on where we've gone and what we're doing. So I don't, we put it on here to kind of continue the discussion, but I don't know if people have explicit thoughts. I do want to make sure that if we're welcomed into Module 2 on October 29th, as we're selecting a design, or OPM first, say in November, I would like to be in a place to say, this is what we want to be doing, to get a firm. I think it makes sense to have a firm that has experience with this and can help us just deliver information effectively. But it could be $15,000, it could be $115,000. I think that will have to be part of the budgeting discussion with the project. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts, opinions.
Marissa?
Sorry, I feel like I'm already falling into my school committee role here. Ask all the questions. So I guess I don't have an idea of budget, but I feel like we've talked a lot about, early in the process about trying to move faster. So I think it is important to talk about, sort of where we're ending up for timeline now that we have a better idea of when next steps will be happening or will likely be happening. I think it's also important that, obviously, like, this group hasn't met in a while, and there's still work going on. I mean, the number of green check marks on page 1 about the stuff that's happening. I think it's just important to let people know that it's not, that the work is ongoing, and give them a bigger idea of where we are, even before we get to that point of having, hopefully somebody doing our communications for us, to just have something out even over the summer to just say, we're still working on this, sort of, this is what's been done in the last, say, 2 months. This is what we're expecting to have happen in the next 2 months. Here's the next big milestone for us, so that you understand where in the process we're at and have a perception of what's going on. So I don't know. I guess I just, the quieter you are, right, then the less invested, engaged people get, and you sort of have to keep that going. And I feel like we've gone long enough right now, even though I know the end of the school year was in here, and that's crazy chaos. But to just continue to keep this in the front of people's minds and let them know where we're at in the process, and it's continuing.
I agree. I mean, we don't need something formal, just getting something out. And once we get that enrollment letter, the MSBA wanted us to get that out to the public immediately.
Yeah.
Said it like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
So.
Oddly, I'm not quite sure. That it was like.
And the PowerPoint as well.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
I just want to ask, and apologize if this came up the last time you guys met and I wasn't here, or if this is way too premature, but when I think about the communications for this, to your point, people are going to start really paying attention when they see a picture of a building and when they see a number. So when would we reasonably expect that we would have a drawing of a building and a number? I know that's so simplistic, but.
No, it's a good question. So we were talking today, so that educational program, right, is that the PRP is the first major submittal for Module 3. So if we're submitting that, that's still just words, right? That's just kind of, here's what we envision, codifying kind of the vision piece. No design, no schematic. That program then becomes the basis of the design. So we probably wouldn't have a sketch and a number until, Jim, you tell me, 2027.
Well, you'd probably have a concept before then, maybe towards the end of next year. A number, you're not, the OPM is going to be responsible for putting a number together to get to that 3011 form, which is your actual budget after schematic design. So the number probably is in 2027, but there will be an evolution of design over the course of the second half of next year.
End of 2026 is something to put in front of people, and middle of 2027 is.
You know, I don't know what MSBA talked to you about, but typically the schematic design in the MSBA process is 20 to 24 months. That's how it's outlined, you know, in every module. I don't know if you went through that with them or.
Yeah, assuming roughly 2 years. Yep.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, so our assumption is if we are welcomed in October, 2 years out, you're talking fall of '27. And so we've said at that point, then we start to have a discussion with, right, our town officials to say, what's the timing of that vote? And how much time do we want from the actual schematic, the approved schematic design with that schematic budget that we can share, publicize, do road shows, right, all of that. You want time, right? You don't want that to happen in late '27. And so we've said, I think on paper, we've said we're talking kind of spring of '28 would be when that vote would happen. But we would start to have some concepts late '26, numbers and more refined concepts over early '27 into late '27.
I think it's going to be a big point of conversation is going to be 6 through 12 versus 7 through 12 too.
Yeah.
Just hearing from the community, there's a lot of strong opinions on that. So I would expect that to be a much earlier. I don't know if Jim has a estimate on when that discussion happens, but
Discussion is the 6 and 7. There's a lot behind that more than design. It's
yeah,
it gets personal in some ways.
very.
Every family's different. The educators look at it differently, the interaction or not. That impacts how the building's going to be designed. I don't have an answer directly, but it's a big point of conversation.
So that will be part of the visioning work, right? So as we mapped out those plans for those workshops into the fall, that will absolutely be a topic that's teased out, for sure.
And I think that's going to be beyond folks who have an investment in the building right now, right? We're going to have kindergarten parents or pre-K parents that are wanting to weigh in on those discussions, or people who possibly don't even have kids yet, but are planning on it, right? Because I think it is a very polarizing topic. I mean, it's just, it's a big one. Also, just having looked at the documentation from a lot of other projects, there's usually a choice point that comes before you even get into having some basic sketches where there are multiple choices on the table, and that's seemed to also be a big point in the other communities. That's where we were hearing from them that they were seeing a lot of discussion.
Brian or Jim, just to help with Patrick, I'll send you a bunch of feasibility studies that we did already, so kind of give you the background, but is it still like $1,000 a square foot? That's what we were talking before?
Oh, on price?
Yeah.
We're hoping a little bit less, but.
It's a little bit less, but it's,
Yeah, it's a little bit less
Yeah.
at the moment. Right now, if you were bidding it now, it'd be a good time to bid it, but I'd say 1,000, maybe, it's probably 850 to 1,000.
so it's just roughly, Patrick, that's pretty much what we're talking about here. when we're talking about square footages and stuff, so you can do your own math.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we should, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Are we at a point where we should start to consider maybe building out some of those cartoon videos that we looked at in our initial meeting, just to summarize our status to date and almost outline what the next year will look like, and then just begin to acclimate the community to that resource, how to access it, et cetera?
I think so, but I'm one of,
I will see Dave Cartoonin next week. And so, yes, I think there's a generic one that would be tailored to Triton, but it's the kind of, here's what we've done so far. It's tailored a little bit later, right? It's not quite, because it includes generally saying, yeah, it's as if we were kind of like at that October 29th date, but we can certainly, I think we're getting to the point, if not right now, for sure, yeah.
Like, jump with the enrollment figure, if you can even take screenshots from that slideshow that was asked to be shared out, or even just incorporate the link to that, might be something to explore.
Yeah, so those videos are affordable if we're just doing basic tweaks and keeping in the shells. I mean, I can do a quick update via video, or if someone else wants to jump in behind the camera. I think very photogenic, John. So I mean, I think if there's something that we can kind of pull together, just a quick summary. I do think video is easy at this point. It's easy to just click it and.
Do you have a question, or are you volunteering to do the videos?
No, I'm not volunteering to do any videos.
Excellent.
Please, I can barely work my phone.
Champagne Studios.
Yeah, no. Maybe my 12-year-old could actually probably do it better than I can. Yeah. One thing I just wanted to put on the table was, now that you've distracted me. Oh, sorry. It'll come back to me.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. No, I know. I got it.
That was impressive.
I got it.
Recovery.
Takes me a minute. I was just saying something, I definitely encourage to get information out and not to information overload, and they don't need, I swear, 99% of parents have no idea what any of these steps are. Module 1, 2, 3, they're all like, huh, what? Anytime I tell anyone in our community, I'm on this group or anything, they're always like, oh, so when will the new school be built? In 2 years? And there's still a lot of misconception about how long this process takes. And I do think that, it's important for a family with kindergartners, and in, my case, I have a 7th grader, that will he actually ever see any of this building? And there's families who are wondering, what is the impact of my kid who might actually be in some under construction phase for their entire high school career. Those are some of the, even as soon as you can get some of that information out to folks, I think it would be helpful. So in this short video, you give some of the basics, but also as often as you can hit on when the most earliest time they would ever break ground on any part of this building, or when you think it would be done, that would be helpful to just keep reinforcing that over and over to level set expectations in the community.
Anyone else? So I think I'm hearing that we need to put something out informal as soon as possible, especially with the enrollment. And also, just to Mike's point before, should we be doing some sort of internal discussion with what's going on behind the scenes?
Say more. Say more about that.
Mike didn't know where we were with the visioning because we hadn't had a meeting in a long time. Should we be putting out something internal to the committee members?
Oh, in between these meetings?
Yes.
We can, for sure.
I think.
Yeah. Just, again, right, it's a public body, right? So we can't deliberate, but we could just push information out, just kind of updates, for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions? And then that dovetails into our next discussion, regular meeting schedule. Does anyone have a preference, or?
I was going to say, last time we talked about Thursdays at 6:30, right? I believe is where we landed. I know we have to nod on DCC weeks, but I know we do DCC on Thursdays because that's clear of other town meetings. Does this group, I guess the question is, we can meet as often as you'd like, right? We're doing this all the time. So if this group would like to come together for more routine updates, we can do that. We could do, at this point, there isn't a lot of, right, once the OPM's involved and we're looking at numbers and plans, we need to be in the room. But, I mean, at this point, we could do a Zoom update once a month if you wanted to do that, just to kind of get a sense. I think certainly by the time we're moving into Module 2, we're going to be meeting very regularly. We're going to be selecting an OPM, and, right, there's work to be done, a subgroup of, I don't think it would be the whole group, but a subgroup of us involved in selecting the OPM and all that. So yeah, I don't know if people have preferences.
Just a clarifying question. When we are at that stage of meeting regularly, is that once a month, twice a month?
I would say, I think I've gone through one project. It could be every hour, but I think to say in general, every 3 to 4 weeks is probably going to need to be, whether it's signing off on warrants or all those decisions. When you get to the point of making specific decisions, a lot of that beyond the design happens like on a weekly basis in the trailer with the OPM and the contractors, and that wouldn't be reporting back to this group, and there'd be some of these members part of those teams. But yeah, I think, again, the goal of this group is kind of information brought, decisions made, execute, come back, update. So yeah, I think it's an assumption of every 3 to 4 weeks. Until 2075. I meant 2035, yeah. Put that in the video.
So does anyone have a preference to doing a Zoom update, or?
Or we can start with, I can try just giving you updates every couple of weeks, just to kind of push information out to let you know where we're at.
Meetings are good too, but a simple email to say, hey, we're doing this at such and such date, we're working with these people, we'll give you an update. I just don't want to come to these meetings and hear, oh, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. And the same 3 people are doing it all. That's an issue with me too, so.
Just to clarify again, we're not making any decisions. Me and Narissa are just observing, basically. That's our role.
I understand that, but if 2 people are getting all the information,
No, I understand what you're saying.
really leaves out, there's 18 people who sit on this board. 2 people who sit on this board should not be doing everything. There should be breaking out, other people should be doing things too. That's all I'm saying.
So I'm going to take that a step farther and say it shouldn't just be this group that's getting a email update, because this, I mean, I've been intentionally asking questions tonight for anyone who might want to watch from the public. We have, oh, he left. Well, we had one member from the public earlier here tonight, but I think, if people want to know, like, watching meetings is one way to do that, and I know some people religiously, my father, have on the local government channel. I saw you on TV every Saturday when I walk into his house. But in a situation like that, I mean, it's just another method of communication, and I'm not unlocking anyone out of this. I hope that we're all approachable, but also I think some of this definitely has to be coming back to more frequent meetings, because sending it out via email is not is not a good way of disseminating information. Mike is not, to your point that you were chosen by the school committee and put on here, right, to help represent Salisbury along with all the other members of this committee who are also going to be equally fighting for whatever comes out of this project. I think that, it can't simply be a trust issue. Everyone should be able to have access to this information.
I totally agree with you. That's all I'm saying is we all made a commitment here, and we all should be involved in all the decisions, all the discussions. The same 2 or 3 people going to do everything. It's going to be hard for all of us to get behind some of this stuff, because only 2 or 3 people are meeting with everyone and talking with everyone. If we break up the smaller groups, okay, this group is going to go talk to the teachers. This group's going to go to the schools. It just can't be the same people doing everything and then bringing it back to us, and us all have to trust the same 3 people or 4 people.
So I'm going to go back to my point here and just say that it shouldn't be just the people around this table, right? It should be out for the general public and not just going via email here.
I
which is,
agree with you,
think, the
but
current
this
point.
body is the one who has to make the decisions and give the recommendations to the school committee and then work to get it voted through the 3 communities, correct?
Yes.
So this body has to know all the information so we can give a recommendation, correct?
It was,
But if it's only 3 people or 4 people going to do all the meetings, how are you going to get us all on board?
that's what we're bringing back to you tonight, Mike. It was just possibilities that anyone was looking at. It was what's out there, what could be options, right? And the goal is to bring that back to this committee. It's not like anyone saying there has to be X in the building, right? That wasn't what happened. Or we want to see X in the building.
Yep, I understand
It was
that.
simply, these are some possibilities that are out there, and everyone's looking to help bring that experience back to enrich the conversation.
I understand that, but if the same 2 or 3 or 4 people are the ones going out and getting all the information and coming back, that's putting me at a disadvantage, that's all I'm saying.
So,
Mike, I'm sorry, I'm not used to a mic, but it wasn't just them. I just wanted to let you know, because you said you wanted to hear from the teacher perspective. It was very much geared for the teachers to look more so that we could see as teachers, and there were multiple teachers there. It was more for the educators, so that we could see firsthand kind of like what options were out there and what kind of ideas there could be and what kind of spaces there were. So it was very much geared towards us being able to kind of see things firsthand as opposed to just kind of looking at them on paper or on drawing and things like that. So it was not necessarily like a couple of school committee meetings. It was much more for the teachers. At least that's what I got out of it. It was more for the educators to be able to see like, oh, I never thought of this idea, or, oh, how does this actually work in the real world and things like that.
I understand that, but I didn't hear the teacher say it. That's my point.
I wasn't sure when or where, but yeah, so we were there. We were there, Matt and I, and like, so I'm representing, and there were other middle school teachers there as well. So I'm representing for all of us from the middle school. There were other high school teachers there as well, and Matt was there as well. So we were there. We were not non-represented. We were 100% there, and there was many of us.
I fully understand where you're coming from. It's not, I'm just trying to make sure that it's a fair, equal playing field, and I'm feeling like it's not. So until something changes, I'm still going to feel the same way.
go ahead.
I think it's important to understand that, first, we have a long road ahead of us. That information's going to come in time. These guys, I think, are doing almost too good a job. That's what's happening, and
I totally agree with you on that.
Also, it is not up to us to design the building. We're not here for that as a committee. That's up to the professionals and everybody else. They bring the designs to us, and we can talk about it, but we have no real design say in this. We have a little bit, but that's what the hired professionals are for. That's not for this committee to decide. So I think that information, I think these guys are doing an incredible job of being proactive and information gathering. And I understand your point, because I felt that way too after the first meeting.
Yeah.
And I've since realized that, believe me, we have a long road ahead of us.
Oh,
so that information's all going to become, he's getting it out here so far in advance that, you know, it feels that way, but that's not an accurate representation of what's actually happening. So be patient. There's going to be a lot of discussion. Believe me, you're going to be bored to death with it.
You don't know me well, do you?
You don't know construction very well, because it bores even all of us, so.
I understand where you're coming from on that, and it's not like they all know me, and this is who I am. I trust every single one of the people who are sitting around this table. I don't like to hear about meetings after the fact. That's not who I am. And that's what I feel like what's going on right now. I'm hearing meetings after the fact, and I don't like that at all. Because I have to just sit here and defend and argue and fight for the school. I don't like to hear it after the fact. That's all I'm asking.
I would just say, Mike, the April 30th meeting, we shared this is what we were going to be doing next. So all we've done is execute what we said we'd be doing in April, and we're reporting to you tonight what we've done since. And then at the next meeting, we'll be able to give you a product. Maybe not the next meeting, but right in the future, you'll see what we've been doing, because there is nothing on paper yet as a product, as Allison said. So Matt and Allison represented for teachers on the building committee, and then we added, there was 16 of us total. So Narissa, Matt, myself, Patrick and Al, Matt and Allison, and then a whole group of other, Shannon as a student services director, Anna as a curriculum director, and a bunch of other, we had Becky Bebo as the district head clinician. So looking at it from all those various perspectives of mental health, instruction from a middle school, a math teacher, right? Kind of a math teacher in the mix, right? So it's like the whole cadre of educational experience, and there is nothing yet to share with you, because we've just done a lot of walking and looking and listening at this point. So, but I think those in kind of mid-meeting or inter-meeting updates will be helpful, just so you're clear on what we're doing, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say personally, I'm really excited to hear the product from your visits. Like, I too am jealous, like it would have been so cool to go on those. But yeah, I'm excited to hear what you learned, discuss it here, and to help promote the participation by stakeholders that I am engaged with, to be able to be part of those visioning sessions or to give their feedback. So I'm really appreciative of the efforts you've put into this so far, and I realize that there's not a lot of opportunities for all of us to be engaged in every single piece, but it seems like there are going to be lots of ways for us to engage in different levels of engagement that work for each of us.
So do we want to table the discussion on the next meeting, or do you want to?
I love you, Matt.
Just trying to get it back to the meeting.
I mean, I guess I would say there's not going to be, other than kind of interim updates, like, hey, we submitted this, we got the letter, the feasibility agreement was signed. There really isn't going to be a lot of other work until we have a product from the visioning, which isn't really going to be until, I mean, probably like that timeline today, we're talking into late October. With that larger group, 3 weeks in between. So I think it's probably to say, let's hold off unless people want to meet. But that probably by November timeframe, I think a routine meeting on the calendar is going to become the norm, to Matt's question, every 3 or 4 weeks, selecting an OPM, and then, then a lot more. Peter's experienced this. So you're like, whew, take a deep breath, and then, we're off to the races at that point, so.
Okay.
So I'm good with that. Okay.
Sounds good. Any other questions? We covered everything. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved. I don't ever get to do it. So moved.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Second.
Thank you, everyone.